And we are recording with Miss Claire Lopez on Wednesday, February 7th, 2024 at 12:32 p.m. Eastern Time. It has been a minute since I've had you on, and as always, it's nothing but seems to be terrifying news. And one thing you always talk about is specifically is with Iran is the marriage between a nuclear weapon and a rocket, which is, much bigger than people realize. It's one thing to have a nuke, it's another thing to have it on a pilotless rocket that, goes several times the speed of sound. So that is a massive, massive thing. It's not a trivial. It's the reason why we brought over so many Nazis after World War II was for rocket technology. We
Hmm.
dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. The next step was, could you deliver it via a rocket? So that is huge news, and there's a bunch of other stuff going on right now. But that's kind of the main one I wanted to focus on because you've brought it up so many times. But guys, please go into the description. Please go check out Miss Lopez's writing, join her email newsletter, and go follow her on Twitter. And but yes, Miss Lopez, how are you?
Yeah, thanks, Tommy. It's great to be back with you, of course. Um, but what you're talking about really is it's not just the Iranian regime's nuclear weapons program, but kind of, the whole ball of wax, the whole confluence of things going on. And we've talked about this before, I think, but we start with the ideology, the Islamic ideology of the Iranian regime, which is what is called Twelver Shiite ideology, meaning that the leadership of the Iranian regime, the supreme leader Ali Khamenei and his top, commanders of the IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Quds Force, they're all true believers. I mean, these are the most devout, faithful, obedient Muslims on the face of the earth, unfortunately. And what they believe is that their messianic figure, known as the Mahdi, can be, I don't know, encouraged to come back to earth, which they believe he will, sooner than he otherwise might have if they, the Iranian leadership, instigate enough chaos and strife and warfare on earth that he'll feel compelled to come back and set it all straight. That's the terrifying part. And then we marry that with a report. You probably know, or listeners may know this, but the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, the United Nations watchdog agency for nuclear programs, many countries around the world, they put out a quarterly report about the Iranian program. And the most recent one came out in November. And this is what got everybody's attention because in that report from November, this is 2023, right? For the first time, the IAEA reported that Iran has enough stocks of enriched uranium, very highly enriched uranium, almost, as far as they know, to weapons grade level, which is 90% and above, but sufficient quantities to make enough weapons grade, to make that last step to weapons grade enriched uranium for, I'm looking at my notes here, 6 nuclear weapons in 1 month's time, 8 in 2 months, 10 in 3 months, and on it goes. Okay, that was November. Now it's 4 months hence, and we're in September. Okay, it was the end of November, so okay, we'll call it, a little less than that, maybe 2.5 months on. But in 1 month, the IAEA says Iran had, at that time, November 23, enough enriched uranium to make um, six nuclear weapons in a single month. Now, in addition to that, the Iranian regime has not been cooperating with the IAEA for some time now. And so, that's as best they know the progress about the Iranian nuclear weapons program. It could be a lot worse than that. In my own opinion, I've said this before, I think the Iranian regime has probably been at least developing, probably building nuclear warheads for quite some time. And I base that on previous IAEA reports, base that on information that the Iranian opposition organization, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, NCRI, has revealed over the, decade now. First of all, blowing the lid off that program for the first time publicly in August of 2002, with subsequent reports coming after that. Of course, then the heist by the Israeli Mossad out of that warehouse in downtown Tehran in January of 2016, when they took out reams of documents, a lot of paper, but also, I think, hard drives and whatever else, which revealed the Ahmad plan, as it was called, the Iranian nuclear weapons program plan. No, it was not put on ice. They kept at it, but in hidden sites, in sites off limits to inspectors from the IAEA. But so all of that, the ideology married to the accelerated under the Biden administration and the lack of sanctions or sanction enforcement anyway, and the encouragement of the Iranian regime by the Biden administration, accelerating the nuclear program as it has done. And now add in the third part of that, and that is what the Iranian regime calls its Islamic resistance or ring of fire around the Jewish state of Israel, which of course exploded this past October 7, 2023, on the Shabbat massacre day. Put all of those things together, the activation now of all of those Islamic terror proxies of the Iranian regime, certainly Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza also, Hezbollah to the north of Israel in Lebanon, all of the Hashd-e-Shabi or the Shiite militias located in Iraq and Syria that are under the command and control of the Quds Force, element of the IRGC of Iran's regime, taking pot-shot attacks at Americans and American bases, places where we have our personnel stationed across the Middle East. That going on before October 7 last year, but certainly accelerated in the months since then. And unfortunately, recently, last couple of weeks, we learned that for the first time, some of those proxy attacks actually wound up killing 3 American service members who were at a post called Tower 22 in the upper sort of north eastern corner of Jordan, right on the border where the border of Jordan meets up with the border of Syria and Iraq. And there, with a drone strike, probably launched by the Kataib Hezbollah Shiite proxy militia out of Iraq, probably, that killed 3 of our service members. So those 3 elements, the nuclear program, the ideology, and the post-October 7 activation, accelerated activation of all of Iran's Islamic jihadi proxies, those 3 things taken together, I think, make for a very dangerous and unstable situation in the Middle East.
How do you think they're actually going to act with nuclear weapons? Is it going to be, because I mean that even without launching them, the simple threat, the simple
Yeah,
capability is a power in its
right.
own.
Well, I mean, at some point, they may, and I don't know for sure, but they may make some demonstration of their capability, or perhaps simply an announcement at some point. We have this capability. We know they have the missiles. I think, of course, that they also have at least some warheads, perhaps a small handful, 5, 6, 7, building more. But to the best of public knowledge, and that's all we have access to, they've not attached any warheads to the nose cones of those missiles yet. But that would probably be the final, red line that Israel would probably have the best information about. I think them being the #1 target there in the region, of course. they would know when that final step would be taken. Now, it's a technological challenge to miniaturize and ruggedize a nuclear warhead to be able to affix it to the nose cone of a missile. That's not easy. But I've said this before too. There's not a nuclear power on the face of the earth that I know of that's taken 45 years to achieve deliverable nuclear weapons when they were determined to do so and had the assistance of every rogue nuclear power on earth, from Russia to China to North Korea to Pakistan.
So, in addition to what you're talking about, you said homeland threats from China, and I
Yeah.
saw, it seems to be more and more that I guess the amalgamation, like the ether of just the millions of headlines you see every day, say that Biden's making it more and more, I guess, hospitable to Chinese threats. Is that just in kind of Taiwan's backyard? Or does that mean just in general? Does that include, the
Well,
border
we've
crisis?
you're right to point this out, Tommy. So we've heard some of our own national security leadership, specifically Christopher Wray, FBI director, testifying before Congress on a number of occasions, but making statements to the effect that the lights are all blinking red now. And he means for the homeland. Yes, certainly in East Asia, the East China Sea, the South China Sea, that part of the East Asia area that the Chinese Communist Party, PLA, People's Liberation Army, threaten. Yes, but I think when Christopher Wray is speaking, he's speaking about domestically. And I would also point out that what we're looking at, and we've talked about this before too, is the red-green axis. Red being the communists, the Marxists in this country, to include the Communist Party USA, World Workers Party, Freedom Road Socialist Organization, and certainly Antifa, um, combined with the Islamic movement here in the United States, most represented by the Muslim Brotherhood and its front groups. And we saw this axis, this red-green axis, in action about a month ago. It was a weekend, a Saturday, January the 13th, 2024, when Hamas staged a rally in downtown Washington, D.C. Well, remember that day. And they gathered at Freedom Plaza, Pennsylvania Avenue, downtown D.C. But as night fell, the mob turned riotous and marched towards the White House. Remember this? And the Secret Service, knowing about this, had put up, very sturdy fencing around the grounds of the White House that day. But the mob was so violent that the Secret Service not only had to evacuate the White House premises of White House staff and reporters, journalists. Uh, Thankfully, the president, Joe Biden, and his wife, Jill Biden, were not there that weekend. They were at Camp David. But also the Secret Service had to physically stand themselves. Remember these
Mhm.
images? Stand themselves up against the fence from the inside, because the mob was so violent in trying to breach that fence from the outside. They had to physically brace it from the inside. So I think that was a preview. And if we went to the website for that event, for that day, it was called March for Gaza, March numeral 4 Gaza.org. And I'm not sure if it's still up. I haven't looked recently, but when it was up, before and sometime after that weekend, there was a list of the supporters for the event, for the pro-Hamas jihadi event. And not all of them obviously present in downtown DC that day, but had signed on as supporters, certainly to the list that was at the website. And that list contained over 350 signatories, groups, not necessarily individuals, but groups, and I named some of them already. The Communist Party USA, Code Pink was another one. Freedom Road Socialist Organization was another one. World Workers Party, and so forth and on we go. Answer, also that acronym ANSWER, as well as a who's who of the Muslim Brotherhood in America. CARE, Council of American Islamic Relations, MAS, Muslim American Society, MPAC, Muslim Public Affairs Council, ICNA, Islamic Circle of North America, ISNA, Islamic Society of North America, down we go. Over 350 organizations. That's what we're up against, I think, this year of 2024, as a presidential election year. And of course, with former President Donald Trump challenging, at least so far, the Democrat Party candidate, Joe Biden, incumbent president. I think that the streets are going to turn very violent. Certainly, as the weather warms up and we move into spring and summer of this year, I think you're going to see that alliance, that red-green axis of groups, hit the streets, quite literally. And I just hope that at the local level, because we can't expect any help from the feds. They didn't help in 2020, and they're certainly not going to help this year either. Or even think back to 2016, another presidential election year when Donald Trump also was on the ballot. But think of those years and the rioting that we saw, in particular in 2020. Think of all of that on steroids this year. And I think it really behooves local law enforcement, police departments, yes, but also maybe even more importantly, the sheriff's departments of each county, to be prepared and ready for what will be, I think, heading our way this year.
Never an episode with you where my
No, I
heart
mean, someday, Tommy, we'll do sunshine and lollipops and unicorns. Promise, we will.
yeah, I know, but but the reality is
Not right now.
there's no true value to ignoring these issues, and we have to talk about them, and our last episode was the coming DC Gaza march. Like they knew it was something was going to happen. And yeah, you just wonder, how far out of control is this going to get us? I mean, even under the Democrat side is more, and it really just, you can tell as a barometer, once you assume, just how many accounts are curated and then how many things are artificially boosted with bots. If you still see dissent, it normally means that there's a massive amount if it gets through the curation and the bots. And I say that to say,
Yeah.
go look at go look at Kamala Harris's Instagram. Like, I'll have accounts where I just follow just the president, no one else. So I don't get any other algorithm input or anything. I don't get any other.
I see.
So for instance, if you followed me on Instagram and you went and looked at Donald Trump's Instagram and I liked it or I commented it, you would see my thing curated to the top because you and I would be friends. But if you just go in kind of like naked, almost just like a raw account, and just go follow, you can go see what at the very top of every single post are the kind of the traditional like militant left, but just talking about free Gaza now, or Kamala or Joe Biden, you've wasted my vote, like you're supporting. So it's kind of crazy that the mob, which I guess in the last two elections have kind of always conveniently been against Donald Trump, the mob seems to be, like mobs do, start to spiral out of control now. And that's interesting, to say the
That's
least.
worrisome. That's a big concern. Now add to all of this what we have not yet mentioned here today, and that is the open southern border.
And that,
And
yeah.
never mind, the absolute chaos going on Capitol Hill, with the Republican Party failure to move towards impeachment of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas yesterday. Apparently, some rule allows this to come back up to a vote next week or something. Then, of course, the bill, the very big, the Biden administration calls it a border bill. Basically, it's a massive spending bill that combines assistance aid for Ukraine, Taiwan, and Israel together with funding supposedly for the border, but in fact, that is funding to add extra resources, personnel, and funding to be able to process in more quickly, more efficiently, more illegal aliens. So put that all aside, leave that on Capitol Hill for the moment, but think about what has come across our border, the numbers that we're hearing during the last 3 years since the Biden administration took office, and think about the jihadis, think about the numbers of terrorists on the terror watch list that have been caught, never mind how many got in between the CBP, Customs and Border Protection, without being seen or caught. Think about the traffickers, narco traffickers, of course, fentanyl, murdering 100,000 Americans a year, human traffickers, child traffickers, all of that, other criminals. And then think about the Chinese. And I know we've talked about this here before too. And the numbers that we know of young, single, military age Chinese men flooding up from the Darien Gap, coming up to our border, across our border. And no, they're not the ones coming through the ports of entry, with their little free NGO United Nations cell phones with the CBP One app on them so that they can just be waved through. No, they're not doing that. While all of our personnel, CBP, which are doing absolutely the best job they possibly can, they want to defend our border. They're being forbidden to do the jobs they signed up for. But because they're all pulled off the line, the very, extensive, long Texas border line, Arizona, and California. I don't mention New Mexico because it doesn't get as much traffic, I guess, as the others. But yeah, New Mexico, Arizona, California, they're coming through there. There are at least hundreds. I've heard people like Gordon Chang say at least thousands of these young Chinese military men, obviously People's Liberation Army, probably Jungle Tigers, that battalion, special operations of the PLA we've talked about, thousands of them inside the country right now. How are they being coordinated? Well, China has an embassy in Washington, D.C., a UN mission in New York, 4 consulates in addition to that, 1 in New York, 1 in Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Plus all these secret police stations and secret service stations, whatever those are for. And probably in my estimation, command and control unit on the island of Cuba, where the Chinese have taken over the old Soviet Lourdes listening post, intelligence collection post, and formed a joint military training program with the Cubans. Put all of that together just from China. And we know for a fact that China was meddling in 2020 with support to Antifa and BLM at the time, rampaging on our streets, causing billions of dollars of damage, dozens of deaths, thousands of injuries, billions in property damage. Put all that together in addition to what I already said about, the red-green axis. Of course, China falls on the, the part of the red part of that axis, right? Communist Marxist. And I really think we've got a tumultuous year ahead of us here in 2024.
Ugh. Yeah,
Sorry.
no, don't be. You didn't do it. You're reporting on it. It's just, man, from like New Year's Day till now, it just feels like 2024 is coming in hot. It's
Yeah.
like it's like
Yeah.
when you see a plane doing one of those emergency landings and they already have all the fire trucks out there because they know it's going to be bad. and it's
Yeah.
coming in lopsided and one gear's down, and it should be only at 100 miles an hour, but it's clearly doing like 350, and you're just watching it and you're just going, you're just saying a prayer. You're like, please let the death toll be minimal.
Yeah.
That's kind of how this feels, just
But
watching
this is
them.
again, I mean, this is why I would put out an alert and a warning, a heads up to local law enforcement. Repeat that again. The local police departments, yes, in municipalities, towns, and cities, but maybe more importantly, the sheriff's departments across this country, because they are the senior law enforcement officials of their counties elected by the people, responsive to the people. Um, and I would give that heads up to that local law enforcement, and anything that local patriotic groups can do, to help support those local law enforcement units, in their neighborhoods, their communities, their counties. I think this is what it's going to take, to be on the alert, to be aware of what's coming, and to be able to be ready to counter it when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, well, for 30 minutes, Miss Lopez, you did terrify me. I'm
Sorry
trying.
about that.
No,
It did
no,
go by
don't.
kind of fast, but
No, no,
no,
no, don't
thank
be.
you for
It's
bringing, the topic up, and letting us discuss it. Even though we've touched on this before, I think, as you say, it seems to be, um, you know, speeding up. Just ratcheting up the threat, as we move into the year.
yeah, but who knows? It might just sometimes it just it does speed up before it calms down. I don't know. I mean, you never know. It doesn't mean that it's not scary. It doesn't mean you shouldn't pray. It doesn't mean you shouldn't, do the most to protect you and your loved ones. But, it's like I had on Baz yesterday, Baz and Christy Wells, and we talked about, child trafficking or like
Mhm.
these aren't fun like I love doing fun. I love having on someone that teaches me, how an LED screen is made. Like that's fun and I like that. But then there's also, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go hunting down every negative story in the world because you'll go crazy. But when they become so large and, the cracks become so meaningful in the facade of, whatever veneer of society we're used to, it does no good to go. I don't want to talk about it. I don't sure it's good. You stick your head in the sand. It's turning off the alarm and going back to bed and going. I'm going back to sleep. I'm not going to think
Mm.
about how when I wake up in an hour I'm going to be fired from my job from not showing up. I get it. I get the draw. It's always better to not want to think about these things, but you know these are all things that are happening and they are increasing and human history is not riddled with, but the majority of it is chaos and tumult. So to
Well,
ignore it
it's
would be
always
silly.
good to be aware, I think, informed, and thereby to be ready, and not taken by surprise, be ready to, defend, and be prepared for what may be coming.
Correct. It also doesn't mean you can't enjoy your life. Doesn't mean you can't walk outside and turn off the news and look at the sun
Yeah.
shining. Like it.
Especially as Puxatawney Phil, the groundhog up there, for me, it's north of where I live in Pennsylvania, in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania, who apparently did not see his shadow a few days ago in early February. And so therefore the prediction is, well, they're only, they're about 40% right most of the time, um, that there will be an early spring.
No,
So something to look forward to, maybe.
we'll take it. Honestly, we'll take it. It's I'm not going to be greedy. I'll take it. If that's what we get, then okay. Um, But Miss Lopez, thank you so much for coming on. Sorry about the shorter episode. Thank you as always for your patience and my constant rescheduling. And one day I will grow up and learn
No
how to.
worries, no worries. There are reasons for things happening, but thank
Yes,
you for,
ma'am.
giving us the time to talk about this again, and I'll
Absolutely.
look forward to the next time.
Absolutely. I'll text you and we will schedule the next one. And again, thank you so much for your time. And Yeah, guys, please go into the description. Please, at the very least, go follow her on Twitter. And yeah, Claire, till next time. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Tommy. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for watching, everybody. God bless. Much love.